Good evening, everybody. This is SQL Dan, and tonight I have another question from the Snowflake Forums, and quite honestly, this one is really interesting, and it has to do with the way that Snowflake resolves naming conflicts. Now, if that sounds like it's a little bit in the weeds, maybe it is, but I think you'll find it really easy to understand, and a way to avoid a future bug. Okay, so here comes the question, and he I think got burned by it. This is Matt Prince writing in. A question came in yesterday on June 13th, and he says, "Wouldn't this be better to return ambiguous column error?" And he has this example here, but rather than work through his example right here, I actually coded it so that we can run queries against it and test it out. So I built a table called my table, which is what he had, okay, and then inserted some values into it. Now I used one more column than he did just to help me explain the examples better, but let me just query the table really quick so you can see it. Why did it do that? Let's see. Sorry about that. Give me a second here. Sometimes I get two cursors in my Snowflake environment, and it's really annoying, and I have yet to find. Now, if anybody wants to create a video and tell me how to solve this problem, I would be all ears. But anyway, I think I got it fixed here. Okay, so here comes his query. My apologies for that. So I have three records here. There's a column called ID, and then a column called use a special logic. And I have a Y in two of them, and I have an N in the third one. So here's the query that he provided now to demonstrate the confusion here. He has, he's selecting, now he didn't have the ID, I added that to it to help us see what's going on, but he has a constant, okay, that he aliased as use special logic. And notice, use special logic is the name of a column from the table, and then he has a decode statement, and the decode statement is referring to something called use special logic. And he says if it's Y, then put use it, otherwise put nah, and it's going to report whether it used the special logic, right? And it's coming from my table. So let's run this query, and this, if you're not, okay, so we can see that in this column called use special logic, we're getting the value that he hard-coded in here and that he called use special logic. But in the decode, we're getting different values, right? We don't have the same Y on all three. Only two of the records say used it, and the third one says nah, indicating that it did not use this value from this derived column, but instead use the value from the database instead. And so what he's hit on here is a very important concept about how Snowflake resolves naming conflicts, where we have an alias in the table that's the same as a column name in the table. And always during the query execution, Snowflake is going to check the table and or view for a column with that name first. And if it finds a column with that name, that's what it's going to use. So despite the fact that he put up here and created a new value for use special logic, Snowflake went directly to the table, it found a column with that name, and then that's what it used for this decode statement right here. So that was the question that he had. Now there's actually a little bit more to this, which is that's how Snowflake handles it during query execution. However, during order by, it's exactly the opposite. In that case, Snowflake looks at the result set first. And if it finds a column in the result set with the name that's specified in the order by, that's what it uses. And then if it doesn't, then it goes to the table. Because you might recall that you actually are allowed to sort by things that do not appear in the query results. So if there's a column in the table with something and you don't have it in your query result, it can still be a part of the order by, but the default is it wants to use whatever's in the query by first. So notice the second half of this, I did use an order by, and I said order by, use special logic, not case sensitive. I typed it lowercase. I probably should have made it uppercase just to avoid confusion. In fact, I'll just change it really quick here. Okay, so we're going to order by use special logic, and then the secondary order is going to be ID. And so you notice that the order by has the record number 3 with the na on it as last. And what we can infer from that is that it did not use the values from the database to resolve this order by right here, right? Because if it had, it would have been a 3-way tie. Oh, right, no, if we had, it would not have been a 3-way tie, and the in would have sorted first. Sorry, I misspoke. The in would have sorted first, and the record number 3 would have been the first one out. But since they all 3 have a Y in the derived column, we can tell that that's what it used. So again, the logic that Snowflake uses to resolve column names that are in conflict with table aliases is it uses column names from the database during query execution first. And when I say during query execution, I'm talking about where clauses and select statements. And then for the order by, it's in the other order, and it uses what's in the select statement. Now, let's take this a step further just to prove this out here. Now, in this second query, I've taken his example, and instead of aliasing it with a column that's in the table, I specifically added an X to the end because there is no column in the table with that name, right? And then I used that in the decode. And in this case, we can see that in the decode, it's now referring to my alias table instead of the one from the database. So that's the answer. It's just something that you have to be aware of on how that works. I know that it's super convenient in Snowflake to be able to alias columns and then use them as a part of the same query, because of course there's a lot of databases where you can't do that, where if you assign an alias, you actually have to put that in a subquery or a common table expression and then refer to it outside of there. So the fact that Snowflake allows you to do that is a nice help. But then in a situation like this where you've created a name conflict, it can come and get you. And so what he was asking in his question was simply, well, shouldn't it raise a name conflict error? And I'm not going to, address whether it should or not. I'm just going to tell you how the database reacts, and just so you can be aware of it. I'm going to take this one step further here, and instead of just looking at an alias which conflicts with a column name, what about a column name that conflicts with a function name? Okay, so I've created another table here, and this table has, let's query the table here. This table has 2 columns in it. This table has 2 columns in it, okay, an ID column, and then a column that I called current time. Well, the problem with current time is that current time is a built-in function inside of Snowflake. So if I, for example, execute that at this moment, where I'm at, the current time is 20:32:55 at the moment, so just after 8:30. And so when I have a column with that name inside of a table, now as long as I did select star, that was great, that worked. But as soon as I go and reference it, let's take this off for a second here. If I say select ID and select current time, and then we've included an order by that I'll also talk about here, we can see that all three records, instead of returning the current time value from the current time field in the table, instead called this function and returned the current time as of right now, again 8:30 p.m. And that was the result that it had. So if I want the result from the table itself, I actually need to alias the table. Okay, and I can alias the column name as well. And if I do that, then I will get the values from the table itself, because now it's explicitly not calling the function, it's calling the table, the value from the table. However, in the order by, I did not alias this. And when you have a function name which conflicts with a column name in a table, the function name wins out once again, right? So I said order by current time and then secondarily order by ID. And notice these current time values are not in order. They go from 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. and back to 6 p.m., which tells us is that the database did not use this column. It instead used the function call to current time, and then there was a three-way tie on these records, and so then it resorted to the secondary column in order to sort the ID there. Anyway, I guess the bottom line is this. It's never advisable to use the names of functions inside of your tables. And not everything is a reserved word that will error out. There's lots of situations where you can create column names that are the same as functions, and what I did right here. But they can also lead to unexpected results if you're not aware of it. So I would always advise against it unless you can present a really compelling reason why you would want to do it. But hopefully this made sense. Hopefully this wasn't one that got really deep in the weeds, and hopefully my explanation made sense. If you like this kind of content and you like the way I explain things, I hope that you will like this video so that YouTube will show it to other people as well. And also, why don't you consider subscribing to this, because I do post up things from the Snowflake Forums, but also some other Snowflake content as well. I'm right now working on some more Snowflake content for regular expressions, for example, that when I finish I'll have out there. And so if you subscribe to this channel, ask for notifications, then you'll get notified whenever that's ready, and you can see my regular expression content. But as for now, we're going to wrap this up here. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions or comments, if I didn't say something correct, or if you'd like me to further explain something, please put that down in the comments, and I'll be happy to interact with you. But for now, this is SQLN signing out.